Sam, let's switch gears to Nebraska here. Obviously, on the court, they got a win against Rutgers yesterday. It appears they are firmly on the right side of the bubble, even off the bubble at this point. We were talking about earlier if we think we know who this team is. Do you feel confident that you know who this Nebraska basketball team is at this point in the season?
Absolutely.
I do too.
Yeah, absolutely. They when they play hard, they're tough to beat. They play hard almost all the time, but they're low, right? They have about 4 different guys, 5 who can make threes. You don't know which one of them is going to be the guy that night. But when Casey does well,
they're supremely confident. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that first sticks out to me is I don't think they care what's going on. I think they think they're going to figure it out. They play with a lot of confidence.
They do. They've set a school record for threes. I mean that's part of it. I mean they're shooting a ton of 3-pointers, and you know what? They're making 36%. And if you're making 36%, that's better than 33%, which is what they've tended to make under Fred Hoiberg.
That's funny because that's exactly what they shot last night.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they like to shoot the 3, and again they've got 5 guys shooting more than 3 3-pointers a game. So Casey, Rink, Bryce Williams, Juwan Gary, and C.J. Wilcher, and all of them are at least 32%. And Wilcher's at 41%, and Bryce Williams is at 38%. And so, they do a pretty good job of making 3. You have to. Well, actually, they have 6 guys, because Jamarcus Lawrence has taken 3 3-pointers away a game as well. So they have 6 different guys who can make threes. Rebounding is an issue. Some of their players can be up and down. Casey goes kind of up and down a little bit. Rink goes up and down a little bit.
Hey, remember that's funny you bring him up because just the confidence thing. I remember first half of the season. I mean, Rink Mass was Nebraska's, but going into the season, a lot of people were like, "Oh, Rink Mass, Casey Tominaga, Rink Mass, Casey Tominaga." And Rink got hurt, and there's a little doom and gloom. And then Juwan Gary was the attitude, and he got hurt. And there's a couple game stretches where they needed his presence, and there are other games where Casey has been non-existent. I'm not sure I care necessarily about who Nebraska's best player is. I think I like the fact more that I've heard it's been a couple of different guys over the course of the season, and it hasn't seemed to matter if any of the aforementioned have played well or not. They found ways to win. This is like
that's right.
It's right. It's like I've heard a lot of the narratives. I don't believe any of them. This is just a good team.
Right. They have great balance. Again, a lot of different guys can beat you on this team. That's good. Not necessarily one guy or 2 or even 3. They have balance. Juwan Gary, when healthy, has been probably their best overall player, just because of his energy and because of what he's able to do. Now, he doesn't always make his threes. I mean, when he makes threes, they're a lot more dangerous than when he doesn't. But you can't really slow him down energy-wise. He's a good defender. So, yeah, it's a good team. They're going to go to the NCAA tournament. And fans probably haven't wrapped their arms quite around that yet. And I'm sure the team wants to keep fired up so they can go beat Michigan and remove all doubt. But they're going to the NCAA. So it's a good deal.
Sam, odd or an even number? Because I think it's in the thousands. So I'll let you pick the first number of fans in Minnesota if Nebraska is opening up on that Friday night.
An odd or even number?
Yeah, 1,000.
You mean like in
2,000?
Oh, yeah.
3,000?
Yeah, I don't know. I think
it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, 3,000 or 4,000 folks.
Okay.
Sure. Minneapolis is 5 hours away.
Yeah.
City used to be 3. They're going to have a lot of fans there. There's a lot of Husker fans in Minnesota. So yeah, they'll have a big crowd. They'll have a big following. They usually do, and it's not going to be quite PBA North, but they'll do a good job of filling the place up. So right now they're on track for the 4th seed. Right?
Yeah, they beat Michigan. They've locked up the 4. And I know that
at that point,
that's just what you had picked, right? When the season started, you're like, Nebraska will have the double bye potentially starting the Big Ten tournament, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. See, I have not logged on to the Homer Network. I swear to goodness, but I actually think, and I get it. There's the guy in Evanston, Mr. Collins, who's going to get a ton of run, but I just think Hoiberg's Big Ten Coach of the Year.
Well,
he's replacing his 2 best players.
One of the challenges here with him winning the award is the season's going to end on Sunday, and I think you got to have your ballot in like 6 hours later. There's going to be people who probably put in their ballot before that. There is a natural media, what do you want to call it?
Let's just call it attraction to Northwestern.
Right, affinity. There's a natural media affinity for Northwestern.
That's a nice way to say bias.
No, it's more of an affinity. Like, and this is true with the national media because many in the national media literally went to Northwestern. I don't know that that's true of the Big Ten basketball media, but I think there's just a general Northwestern's doing more with less. Like, they don't have all the bells and whistles that these programs over here have, and you know what? That's true. I think that's accurate. I think Northwestern has to do more with less. They have a cool arena. I think it's not an easy place to play, but they don't enjoy the luxury of the practice facilities and the NIL operation that Nebraska has. So I would pick Fred Hoiberg, but I understand why, the majority of the media, most of whom are in their 20s and early 30s, just look at hey, that's a good school and they're a good team, so we're going to pick them because that sounds about right to them. I don't think Matt Painter should win it. I don't. That maybe that's rude, but I don't anticipate Matt Painter being the winner of that award.
Sam, does it matter to you at all that Chris Collins has had kind of this type of success before at Northwestern and fairly recently, just a couple years ago? I mean, they were still a 20-win team, or just last year they were in the NCAA tournament and 23-win team as well. Does that matter to you at all? Like, they're not. It seems like Nebraska's made a bigger leap this year, I guess. Does that matter to you in voting?
I don't have a vote. I would vote for Fred Hoiberg. So yeah, I guess it matters to me. I think and maybe I'm being unfair. I think I'm describing, if Chris Collins wins the award, I think I'm describing why. That's what I anticipate being the case. But you never know. Like, maybe it'll be different. Maybe Nebraska will, if Nebraska is the number 3 seed, which if Michigan State beats Northwestern and Nebraska beats Michigan, Nebraska's going to be the number 3 seed.
Yeah.
Hard to argue Chris Collins over Fred Hoiberg for me. But, then you listen to other people and, they just have, different opinions. I think in general, it's just hard. Nebraska is always kind of battling uphill in a lot of the sports they're in to gain the eye of the Eastern media. The one exception is volleyball. That's the one area where it's like nobody tries to play cute or I don't know, like they don't do that. They're smart enough to not do that and to not pretend that other programs are better, quote unquote. They're not. But certainly in men's basketball, in women's basketball, in football, it's just an uphill battle. Nebraska's not just going to have to win on points a lot of times with the league media. They're going to have to win by knockout, and that's just the way it is. And Nebraska will have to earn its way that way.
Amy's got to have a 5. Nebraska wrestling's got top 7 in duels. Track and field, here they come. Baseball coming off a sweep. We talked about basketball. You've got football that is trying to build some momentum and stack some wins. You were part of that unbelievable run of writers that were at the Daily Nebraska. And last time there was an athletic director that really seemed like a rising tide lifts all boats. like a common vision. Are you allowing yourself to see some of that with Trev and his leadership, or are you a little guarded still? Because it seems like, and this is on the heels of him using a moat reference with me yesterday or last week at the high school, Sam, where I told Ravi he's trying to build a moat around the staff and let him go to work because he thinks he has good people. Are you allowing yourself to kind of compare and contrast?
Not quite, because of the football program.
Gotcha.
I think, where Nebraska football was.
Do you see it?
Year. Well, it's not that I don't see
the vision. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
The united front.
Absolutely.
Because football pulled it off. I mean, full disclosure, without Bill and Coach Osborne being lockstep, right? I mean, so it can be done.
No. I mean, I see the vision. I'm not trying to be. I'm just saying that, it's like that line from The Social Network. If your clients had invented Facebook, they would have invented Facebook. When Nebraska football does this, they'll have done it. They need to do it.
Bingo card.
We're not in the that moment of like projecting and like assessing. It's when they do it, they'll have done it, and that's about the time that then you can say it's done. Like they have to actually go do it. So yes, all the things are aligned and it all looks good. Now you have to go, and if you're Nebraska football, you have to go out and beat the teams on your schedule. You have an incredibly favorable setup for the first half of next year. Just go do what you're supposed to do. And to be honest with you, in the last decade, Nebraska's really only done that twice. They did it in 2014 and they did it in 2016. And then, they had these cataclysmic losses in November of both of those seasons, but at least they won 9 games. Nebraska has to go do that. And until they do that, then they haven't done it yet. I think Matt Roble agrees with that. Like they have to put it on. They have to put it on paper. They've recruited good enough players. They have enough momentum. All the rest. Now it's just time to go ahead and put it on the field.
Sam, DB and I were talking about this last week. Kind of the expansion of the college football playoff and kind of the bullying of the Big Ten and SEC of everyone else. And DB brought up a concern that at some point that mentality could lead the Big Ten or the SEC to start cannibalizing its own as well when it comes to money shares and playoff shares and things like that. Is that something you've thought about at all, or that concerns you at all as we continue to move somewhat rapidly down this road?
I have thought about it, and I think Nebraska's thought about it. Yeah.
That's where I got it from, right? I listened to Trev. He said it for a year.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that's certainly on their mind, and you have 3 or 4 programs that probably feel like they've earned the right to get a little bit more. Now I'll say this: Michigan cannot just assume that it's going to remain elite. They're losing more great players than any other program, and they're switching over, a coach. And so I don't know that Michigan's going to go 12-0 next year in the regular season. I bet against it, actually. So, it comes at a unique time, but yeah, absolutely. I think there's going to be programs within the Big Ten that are like, hey, we're here. We've been here a long time, and we're doing really well, and we're the ones who are driving the ratings. And yeah, so I think that's definitely possible. That's why the urgency is just there. That's why what happened for the first decade while Nebraska football was in the Big Ten is so unfortunate, because there was a lot of infighting and a lot of team contest, so to speak, of who's going to do this and who's going to do that, and who's right, who's wrong. Some of that was on the administrators, some of that was on the coaches, and rarely was there a moment over the course of that decade where everybody was on the same page. And the irony of it is they were arguing over stuff that had happened a decade before the last decade. And so, hopefully all that stuff's in the rearview mirror. And I think that now that it is, you probably don't have a program where, the coach is paranoid or worried or any of these other things. He's getting what he wants. The administration is giving him what he wants, and I think everybody's trying to move forward in one direction. The athletic director's around. He's in the offices. People know where he is. That kind of stuff.
I just panic ensued when Petiti, 2 hours after the playoff meeting, was like, "Hey, we got a lot more work to do." And I was like, "That wasn't even what the meeting was about. What else are you guys not telling us?" Right? So then I just started going back, and everything that Trev said about positioning themselves and being a commodity that people want, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really going to happen.
Yeah.
Sam, we
appreciate
the time as always, Sam. We will talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Sam.